Welcome. This evening we have the 5 candidates for 3 positions as trustee on the Village of Pelham Board of Trustees. They are up here on stage. Andrea Reinecke, Adam Kagan, Christopher Ream, Richard Deere, and Michael Recca, and they'll be telling you more about themselves shortly. This is an informational meeting sponsored by Pelham's Plus and the News of Pelham. The audience is submitting questions on index cards. The moderators will not be asking any questions. It's not CNN, folks. I am Maggie Klein of the Pelham's Plus and will be the moderator for the first half of the meeting. Jennifer DiLeonardo of News of Pelham will be the moderator of the second half of the meeting. We have a timekeeper in the front row here because we're following rules, guidelines to keep the meeting moving. Trustee candidates will have a 90-second opening and 2-minute closing statements. Candidates' answers to questions will be limited to 2 minutes. If the 2 minutes are not used, the balance of that 2 minutes can be assigned to another candidate. A candidate from the other party will be allowed a 1-minute response to any question. There can be follow-up after that 1-minute response. Questions must pertain to issues that are in the jurisdiction of the Village Board of Trustees. The moderator can disallow any question not deemed appropriate. Only residents of the Village of Pelham will be allowed to ask questions. And index cards are available, and pens, and somebody will collect your questions. Everyone in the audience will be allowed a chance to ask one question before any questioner is given an opportunity to ask a second question. The questioning will end promptly at 8:45 to allow for the 2-minute closing statements. So now we're ready with the first question. We had asked for questions to be submitted by email if people might not be able to come tonight. This is one that I received by email. Oh, sorry. You want an opening statement? All right. We had everyone draw.
Just do closing statements and head home.
You can start with closing statements. Draw lots to see who would go in what order. Mike Recca, you're first.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming out tonight. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Recca. I'm a lifelong resident of Pelham, and I graduated from this fantastic high school. I'm running for Pelham Village Trustee because I care deeply about this community, one that I've grown up in and another that I've chosen to make my home. My whole life I've been intimately involved in a number of community service endeavors in Pelham. I'm a member of the Pelham Civics, a co-founder of Strikeout CF, and a former member of the Board of Ed. In 2011, I led a group of 22-year-olds in raising money for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, in memory of our friend. Since then, our group has raised over $300,000 and has expanded countywide to increase awareness and funding for the CF Foundation. While on the Board of Ed, I served and chaired several committees. With valuable input from our community, we were able to develop a comprehensive 5-year plan that will set the framework and direction of our schools for the next several years, as well as negotiate and ratify contracts with all 4 of our district bargaining units. I'm excited to be here tonight speaking about my candidacy for Village Trustee. From my past experiences as a Pelham community leader, I am a proven team player, a collaborative thinker, and an effective communicator. Serving on the Board of Ed is very similar to serving on the Village Board. There are budget constraints with the tax cap, there are contracts to be negotiated, and services to be provided. I've dealt with all these issues, and if elected, I'll be able to jump in and hit the ground running on day 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I have a question. What are those colors? I can't see the number if there is one. Is there a number on that?
No,
I think.
that's
Okay.
a warning. The
Okay.
yellow is a warning.
Is that 15 seconds? Okay, thank you.
Christopher Ream.
Sure, thanks. Thank you all for being here tonight with us. You know, it's important that we have choices for good candidates, especially in our local elections. And so I hope that my comments tonight will be helpful to you as you each make your own choice. I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish and be a part of in the last 2 years on the board. And I'd like an opportunity to continue to work on some of those initiatives and be a part of the good work this board has been doing for another 2 years. We're going to talk about a lot of different issues tonight about what is going on in the village. So let me just highlight very briefly some of the priorities that I'd like to continue to serve and work on to stay on the board that I think are important for the board. The first is that I'd like to continue to do the analysis of the long-term work and budgeting that it would take to find permanent reductions in our taxes, not just keeping within the tax cap, but finding ways for us to continue to get some kind of control over our tax base. That's going to include some tough decisions, including finding ways to open up more conversations with our neighbor community in the manor. As well, I'd like to contribute to how we can improve our downtown. To me in particular, that means coming together with a common strategy, primarily based around more restaurants, so that we can beautify and get more energy going on within our community. And the third is to continue to bring thoughtful and experienced judgment to the board. My work in venture capital and in economic policy allows me to be on several different public and private boards. I can appreciate very much the value of having good debate and following process. So thank you.
Rick Deere.
Hello, and thank you for coming tonight. My name is Rick Deere. I have lived in Pelham for over 40 years, and I was a police officer for the village for 30 years. I retired a little over a year ago, and I am now currently employed by Rosenberg & Estes, a real estate law firm, as a paralegal. Please let me tell you a few of the reasons why I'm running for trustee. I grew up in Pelham, and my wife and I raised a family here. I love living in this community, and I truly like the people that live here. I have worked as a civil servant for and helped the people of this community for 30 years as a police officer and detective. I am not finished serving this village. There is so much more that can be done. Now that I am retired, I want to help the people of this village in a different manner. I will be a great resource to the board and to the community given my vast experiences. My knowledge of the police department and how it works will help during budget process and saving money. Knowing the police department is the largest part of the budget, I can have a real impact while still continuing to provide the same level of services to the village. On another note, recently there was a pedestrian hit by a vehicle on Colonial Avenue next to the high school. As a police officer, I have directed traffic on that road and issued tickets. I understand what is needed to be done in order to make that intersection safer for all pedestrians. The village still has flooding issues. I live in that flooding zone, and I have been knee-deep in these floods working to help residents of the village. Thank you very much.
Andrea.
Hello. Hi, I'm Andrea Ranke. Hello, microphone. I've lived in Pelham for 15 years. I live on Willow Avenue in Chester Park with my husband Roger and our 3 children, Siobhan, who's 13, Izzy, who's 12, and Emmett, who is 10. And like everyone here, I care very deeply about this community and about its people. So I've spent a lot of time volunteering. I currently serve on the planning board for the village. I'm on site-based council at Hutchinson. I'm on the PTA council, the Friends of the Pelham Public Library. I'm a class parent, and I'm also a sustaining member of the Junior League of Pelham. I was formerly PTA co-president at Hutch, and I served 8 years as a council member on the Community Church of the Pelhams. I'd like to serve as village trustee because, well, like everyone, I want to help maintain and shape our wonderful community. And although I grew up far away from here, far, far away, Pelham is the hometown that we chose, and I want to ensure that it remains the kind of place that old-timers and newcomers alike continue to choose as their hometown. Thanks.
All right, now we will start with some questions.
Adam,
Oh, I don't want to.
That just hurts my feelings, man.
it's because I
Sorry.
moved over here. It seems
Adam.
like we're...
I want to get to questions, but you're important too. Sorry.
Thank you, Maggie. Hi, I'm Adam Kagan, and I'm running for my third term as village trustee because I'd like to see the village continue to prosper. We've made some good progress in the last 4 years, but we have some tough decisions to make on our budgets, some of our labor agreements, and some of our long-term planning issues. If you've ever watched or attended any of our board meetings, you'll notice that I tend to ask a lot of questions. In my view, a trustee's job is to gather information, ask questions, evaluate the answers you get, and use that information to set a clear direction for the village. To properly set that direction, trustees must review all the provided materials we get, and we get before every meeting a nice fat envelope full of them, understand all of our laws, consult with the village professionals in those departments, discuss and debate with colleagues on the board, and I believe that trustees really need to invest the time necessary to prepare and ask those questions that lead to the best outcomes. I've lived here for 8 years with my wife Melissa and our children Henry and Josephine. In my spare time, I coach Little League, and I try to figure out or help my son figure out the 4th grade homework. Before I was trustee, I was on the planning board, and I've spent the last 4 years as a trustee asking the questions that I know that I would want answered. So please return me to the board so I can continue to work on the challenges of our budget cap, defining the role of responsible development that will play in our community, and a successful negotiation of the labor agreements with the unions representing our employees. I'm running on the Democratic Party line as well as the Working for Pelham ticket. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, all 5.
Thank you, Maggie.
I'm sorry. The first question is from Chris Cohen, 304 7th Avenue. I received this one by email. This is for the 3 non-incumbents. Why do you wish to be a trustee, and is there any specific action that was taken by the present administration that you would have done differently? Can we start with Andrea?
Well, thank you for that. Well, as I think we've all agreed in our statements, everyone here has a big commitment to the community, and we care deeply about what happens. And that's why people run, because they can, they want to, they feel they can make a difference. I think that's pretty standard. I've shown time and again that I'm willing to put in the work, and that's why I'm here. In terms of things that the current board has done, I actually think that Pelham is a great place, and they're doing largely quite well. I don't know that there's much point in picking apart what's happened in the past. I'm kind of about moving forward and doing things the best way possible in the future.
That's fine.
So ask me about something that is coming up. I don't want to waste time on the past.
Rick?
Okay, I love this town, this village. Like I said before, I was raised here. I raised my family here, and nothing would make me happier than for my children to raise their family here. The only way for that to happen is to keep the taxes reasonable so that they can afford to live here. I served 30 years protecting the people in this village. I enjoyed all 29 3/4 of it. I want to continue to serve. I believe with my experiences in the police department and the amount of time that I've lived in this village, I understand what works here. I understand what doesn't work here, and I believe that I'd be a very good candidate to be a trustee here. As far as doing something different than the past trustees, I have no comment on that.
Mike?
Thank you. As Andrea and Rick said, I love this village as well. I grew up here. This is my home. This is going to be my home for a while, hopefully. And I want to serve because I've always been involved in giving back to this community, whether it's on the Board of Ed, whether it's volunteer work throughout the community. I see this as another way for me to give back to this village. When it comes to looking at what the past trustees have done and what I would do differently, spending a term on the school board, you know that the decisions you see the decisions made when you're on the outside, and they're not always they're not always as you thought they were. Things that happen in executive session, whether that be on a contract negotiation, whether that be a specific of a legal reason on why the decision was made that way. I'm not qualified here to Monday morning quarterback if I don't have all the facts on all the decisions made. So I'm going to yield my time there.
All right, this question, if it's from someone who is here, we ask that you stand, but I still read the question, okay? Judy Champagnier, 263 Pelham. Please describe how you view, okay, this is for all the candidates. Please describe how you view pedestrian safety in the village of Pelham. To your knowledge, what measures are in place to regularly monitor and ensure pedestrian safety, and where do you see opportunities for improvement? And this refers especially to the incident recently where a child was struck on Colonial Avenue. And what do you think the villages of Pelham and Pelham Manor might do to work together on this? Mr. Recca, would you like to start?
Sure. Pedestrian safety is obviously a very important topic. Obviously, we want our roads to be, easy for cars to navigate through, but also very safe for our children and our adults to walk through and cross and, make this community a walkable community. As for what the role of the village board is in addressing pedestrian safety, there are a number of things that we could do. We could look at, and I know the board is looking at, lowering the speed limit on certain roads in our town. Whether other options would be speed bumps or cut through. I don't know the exact term where they kind of shrink it into one lane to flow traffic and make it slower so people aren't making aggressive passes. We could have police patrols where they're enforcing the speed limit. And anybody who drives in Lower Westchester knows if you're going to drive on California Road in Eastchester, you better not go 30 miles an hour because you're going to be in Eastchester Town Court with a speeding ticket. So I think that those are a number of issues that the village board, both Pelham Manor and Pelham, could do. Thank you.
Okay, Rick?
As I said in the past, being a police officer, I can't tell you how many afternoons and mornings I directed traffic at that intersection crossing the children. It's a major thoroughfare. People going back and forth to work. There does need to be, there are steps that need to be taken. The village already has made the intersection brighter with putting new lights in, which is a very good step. I think as far as working with Pelham Manor, the first thing we can do is ask them to put their radar trailer closer to the high school so people can understand exactly how fast they're going. Our village also owns traffic counters. These counters tell us exactly how many cars are going on the street and how fast they're going and what time. Along with that, we can put up details of police officers that could be subsidized by the state because they do give us grants for traffic stops. Thank you very much.
Christopher?
Sure. Let me just comment in brief. We're a very safe community. We have detective Deere and the rest of the police force to thank for that. The fact, though, however, that people often drive a little too fast and may forget what's going on in the morning or coming home at night, especially with kids running around, is a function of our own personal responsibility. So the first thing we have to do is talk to each other and remind each other, take that extra breath, slow down rushing to the train. That was the source of one accident not too long ago. This one was someone coming home at night, if I remember, about 6 o'clock. Right now in front of the board, the board is in the process of discussing lowering the speed limit either on selected roads or perhaps across the entire village. This is something the mayor raised through the source of this type of discussion and problem. I am absolutely for that. That would be a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit across the village. That may show some inconvenience for some people, but it's probably the right thing to do. Nothing's more important, however, than looking after each other and slowing down. I'm asked constantly by neighbors about what they can do to slow people down in their corners. Let's start with each other.
Adam?
Thank you. For me, the analysis begins with the professionals, the village employees, like the chief of police, and the data that they can provide. The data being accident counts and things like that, but also the traffic counters. We have a set of traffic counters. We know not only the speed, but the time of day, as Detective Deere, former Detective, Mr. Deere, I guess.
It's hard.
Detective Deere, I know, has mentioned. There are other traffic calming devices at our disposal that our Public Works Department has, can help implement. But that intersection at the corner of Colonial and Wolf's Lane is a little unusual. That one's entirely in the village of Pelham. So although it's next to the village of Pelham Manor, it is in the village of Pelham. So it is our responsibility to make that intersection safe. And I think that taking advantage of improved lighting, the traffic calming devices, perhaps even looking at the changing of the time or a turn arrow, those are all levers that are within our control. But for me, that decision begins with consulting the professionals, the village employees, to help us make those decisions.
Andrea?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It's come up on social media, and people have talked to me about it, and I've read about it. I know that the mayor and the current board are looking at lowering the speed limit. I think that would be a good move. There's nothing wrong with that. I do notice as someone driving around town, on the personal responsibility front, a lot of people just go through stop signs. That needs to stop. People need to just, as Chris said, slow down and take a moment. I think we can definitely look at enforcement more closely. I know, I believe the mayor said he was going to contact the police chief and get him involved with all of the discussion that's been going on. I would actually think at the corner of Corliss and Wolf's Lane, it might actually be a good idea to put a stop sign there. Oh, sorry. Just to slow traffic down completely.
All right, this question is from Ed Doty on Oak Avenue. How will the village, this is for Andrea, Adam, and Chris. How will the village stay under the tax cap and still pay for vital services and village improvement? Chris?
Sure. Thank you. This tax cap is a very important issue. I imagine most of us are fairly familiar with it, but this is a state mandated requirement. Villages have the opportunity to waive it, but it is really, for the most part, a good disciplining tool. For us to stay within the tax cap this year will be especially challenging. We have 1/12 of 1% this year, which means about $12,000 on a $10 million budget. Our expenditure level is about $14.5 million, 14.4. We are right now in the process of collective bargaining with police and fire. That will be a very important element. But much of our budget is already spoken for, especially in terms of pensions. So we're going to have to not only make some difficult decisions, not necessarily change anything in terms of services, but look to be very, very prudent and very aggressive about what extra expenditures we will want to use. And ultimately, we may have to use a little bit of our general fund to actually keep to the tax cap, even though the expenditure may go slightly over. I will look to do all I can to avoid that. That, to me, is not where we want to make the tax cap.
Adam?
Thank you. In about 3 weeks, the Board of Trustees will begin the budgeting process. Part of that is looking at a very thick book of numbers. And those numbers take a little bit of it takes a little bit of time to absorb. But again, for me, this begins with consulting the professionals in those departments. Those numbers are put together by the heads of those departments. So the police chief, the fire chief, the acting fire chief, the Department of Public Works, the administrator, all put those numbers together, and they help us understand what a cut here means and what an additional expense there means. But as Chris said, 80% of our $14 million budget is already spoken for in terms of labor contracts and benefits. So there isn't a whole lot of room left to adjust. With that said, though, I think it's important to note that we are making progress. We are negotiating with our labor unions in great detail. We've had 5 meetings so far this year with our labor unions, and we want to make sure that we get to an agreement so that we know exactly what we need to budget for. Thank you.
Andrew?
No. Yes, I did. Sorry. Thank you.
Andrea, do you have
Do you want me
a
to do it
comment
again?
on this? What?
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, in terms of the importance of collective bargaining, as Adam pointed out, 80% of the budget's already spoken for. So there's 20% where there's some wiggle room. There's many things that are needed with respect to collective bargaining, pensions, benefits, salaries. Those go up, and they always go up, and the tax cap goes down. So not only do we have to keep costs down, things have to get even tighter than they were before as that goes up. So I think creativity is key, and looking at sharing of resources with other communities. Some of that's already happening, in terms of paving and other things. So that sort of thing really helps with the budget.
Now, the other side can have a 1-minute response.
I love to start. They're absolutely correct. It's a difficult job, and with my experience in the police department, I have in-depth knowledge of what happens in the police department, and I know where things can be cut and where things cannot be cut. There are places that we can go and trim the budget, trim their budget a little. Not that they're going to want to hear that, but it's going to have to happen. I've negotiated contracts with the village, and I've always done very well. Now I'll have to assist the board in negotiating against the police department or with the police department, but to get a better result for the village, and hopefully something that makes the police department happy.
Oh, 1 minute.
Thank you.
Just from
1 minute.
one side, yes. That's
Okay,
the rule. Sorry.
Did I understand the rule?
Okay, this is from Anfield on Clifford Avenue. We've got to move this along, so I'm just going to not ask everybody to answer this. I'm going to choose Adam because he thinks I'm not picking on, I'm ignoring him. What kind of downtown development would you consider?
Well, in my view, it's for the community to decide. It's not for the village to it's not for the village board to decide. The village board gets to pull the levers to make the community a more attractive place to do business. There are certain things the village board can do, like adjusting our zoning code to make it easier for businesses to understand what it takes to do business here. But ultimately, it's all of us that vote with our wallets when we shop at the kinds of restaurants we want. If we don't want to continue to see empty, vacant lots in stores, we need to shop here. When you need to buy a hammer, I would suggest you buy it in town. When you need to order something, order it here and don't order it on Amazon. I know that Amazon will be upset to hear that, but do business here, transact business here, and there will be other businesses to follow. That's how I see it.
Mike?
Trustee Kagan's right. It starts with us shopping in downtown, and when it comes to development, the village government isn't in the business of saying, I want another pizza shop, another nail salon. We do have opportunities to allow that via zoning, but ultimately the residents have to decide, the businesses have to they have to come to Pelham and say, I want to open up shop here. And it starts with people shopping in town and us and the businesses wanting to open here. I think any development, if it was going to be, residential development, has to be done right. We can't have any we don't want to see an increased burden on our schools or our police and fire. But those, obviously, we look into those. I'm not opposed to residential development, but it would have to be done right and smart. I'll yield the rest of my time.
Okay, let's go to another topic. This is from Catherine Roselle. She just ran out. She's in the high school. She's in charge of an Olympics thing. Okay, she says that there is a new interim acting fire chief, and she wants to know how will a permanent fire chief be chosen, and she hopes it's from in-house. So let's ask the trustee, who's the liaison to the fire department, about the situation with the acting fire chief. Chris?
Sure. Well, it's too bad Katie Roselle's not here. If you don't recognize her name, she was the one that recently raised money for the fire department for the new Homatro pads. So she's a real hero as well, and I'm glad she could be part of listening in tonight. We just on the board approved a new interim chief. Our former interim chief was Chris McCann, who served for about 6 to 7 months. Chris is now moving on to retirement. That was his plan along the way. The decision of the board was to continue to analyze what the long-term best strategy could be for a permanent chief. We've not had a permanent chief in the village for a very, very long time. So we have selected Jim DiNapoli from within the House, who has in fact served as an interim chief in the past for the next 4 months. We're going to continue to monitor what should be our best options. We're also looking at longer term decisions as well, and we want to keep as much flexibility open to how we can deal with that leadership transition. And for that matter, there's in time there will be a police transition as well. How can we best afford good leadership in a very small community? So 4 months right now is what we're doing.
This side, do you, either one of you want to comment on how a new, or whether there should be a permanent chief?
Absolutely, there should be a permanent chief. Every department needs a boss. Now, without a boss, who knows what can happen at some place. As far as who to choose for the next position, there's a lot of civil service rules and laws that you have to abide by if you're trying to make a chief from within. I believe there's a test that was taken by several members of the fire department. I don't know what the results are or who's on the chief's list, if there is a list, if the village is even called for a list. But in the police department, that's how promotions are given, by civil service examinations, and then seeing who's the top on the list, and then interviews being done. Even though the chief's position is different, interviews can be done to see who is the most qualified person to be given the job.
All right. This question is from Jeff Ginsburg. He just left. He's asking, how would you manage to pave more roads? Mike Recca.
Obviously, a lot of people, if you drive around town, there are a lot of potholes around town. And, the last 2 winters haven't done us any favors. So, when it comes to paving, we negotiate with a number of municipalities in Westchester County through a state program. I think it's called CHIPS. And we get cooperative bids to pave, and we coordinate the paving process. Now, when we do that, if there's going to be a big match and we can get a big grant, then maybe it's time to look into doing a big match with that grant while we're doing that. We have increased the paving budget over the years, and I think that we could blow our whole budget paving every town in Pelham. And that's not something that's fiscally responsible, and it's not prudent. So we have to look at how much money is left over at the end of the year and what we can do to afford the paving in town.
Adam, give us
Sure.
an update on paving.
Sure, paving is one of my favorite subjects because when I learned that it costs between $30,000 and $40,000 a block to pave a block, I was shocked. And we do get some money from the state in the CHIPS program. The last couple of years, it's been about $100,000, which, as you can tell, doesn't pave a whole lot of streets. But we have worked with New Rochelle and a consortium of a bunch of other communities. So they go out and they bulk bid so that the work is spread across all the communities and we get a lower per block price. The other thing that we did in the last year is we took some of the money that we had received from the water fund, which we divested ourselves of. So we had some extra money for that, and we added another $130,000 to the $100,000 we had. We also did something which I thought was an interesting idea that was brought up by our public works foreman, and that was we bought a special piece of equipment that allows us to make our own patches better. It's called a hot box, and it allows us to keep the tar and asphalt hot longer, and our patches hold better, so those streets will be in better shape. But ultimately, I think we just need to open our eyes and look around. Con Ed is ripping up a whole lot of streets out here. I think it'd be a great opportunity to, if they've got to pay to repave half the street, I would love to go in with them and pave the other half, and I can get a bunch of streets paved for half price. So those are the kinds of opportunities we look for. But also, streets are a long-term asset. Those are the kinds of things that bonds are created for. Bond interest is very low, and these things last for a long time if you take good care of them. Streets is an area that is very visible, and I know people pay a lot of attention to it, but it's something that I think we can really move the lever on.
Joe Marty on Highbrook Avenue. Chris, would you give us an update on flooding and what the village is doing or not doing?
Sure. We have a very long-term problem in the way water flows through the village, especially coming from the New Rochelle side. Too many of you are very intimately familiar with it, including those 6th, 7th, 8th, and down along 4th Street. Right now, we have a plan, a 7-phase plan that was devised a number of years ago that could potentially solve the problem. And in fact, earlier administrations achieved some grants for that. A wonderful thing to do. These grants required that we also spend some money. And so in the course of the last few years, we've found that some of the earlier estimates of what we thought that work would take is turning out to be quite a bit more, to the tune of $3, $4, $5 million more, something that is far beyond potentially our scope to be able to reasonably afford. So we have two questions we're trying to address. Is this in fact the right engineering model? And the board just this week approved an engineer to re-look at that 7-phase plan as well as do some survey work. The second is to try to prioritize. In the nature of that 7-phase, top of the flooding problem, bottom of the flooding, are one of the other best dollar bang for the buck in terms of handling most of those problems. Some of the flooding has been reduced in the last few years because we were able to work with New Rochelle to lower the water level in Glenwood Lake. But we also have a lot more work to do. I'm hoping that as we do some of this paving work or other infrastructure work, we'll also try to tie in some of the drainage repair over time. Just as Adam said, let's get more for our dollar when we have to open up streets.
Do either of you have a flooding comment?
Sure, I'll take it. Well, Rick and I both know the flooding issue as well. We're on one of those. We're both on those streets that flood, and we're knee deep in it. And I commend the work that the board has done over the last couple of years. Lowering the water table at Glenwood Lake has really helped. We notice it every year, but we've noticed it this year and last year. There's less water in our basements. And I saw that you guys approved the study at your last board meeting, and that is a great idea. If we're gonna spend, $6-7 million to, go out and bond and fix the flooding problem once and for all, let's make sure that this plan is right. And if it's right, then we have a discussion on whether or not it's worth bonding for at this time. I'd have to get more information, as the whole board would, whether or not this is the right decision. But I think that the board is taking prudent actions at this time to mitigate the problem.
Okay, I'm going to turn the moderator duties over to Jennifer. And I regret that we haven't been asking our newcomer over there many questions. So let's see what we can do about that.
Thanks, Maggie.
Anyone?
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie.
Try to follow Maggie well. So this is a question for the Republican candidates from Sal Iriganello. In particular to the Republican candidates, for years there have been talks of sharing services with Pelham Manor, but it seems to go nowhere. How do you feel you'll be able to make any impact on this issue?
I'll start. I'm going to have to go back again to, 30 years as a police officer for the village. I worked with the Pelham Manor Police Department time and time again. The chief there right now, Jeff Carpenter, I had worked with him on numerous occasions, numerous cases, and we always worked very well together. I believe if we needed to go over there and get some cooperation from the police department, I would be very comfortable, as well as Chief Carpenter, in sitting down and figuring out what we could do together to solve whatever problems we had. As far as the fire chief, I've known Joe Ruggiero for several years. I've worked with him on a couple issues when we had an oil spill in the Hutchinson River on First Avenue. They called for assistance from Pelham Manor because they had the oil booms. I worked with Joe on that occasion, and I know him for several years. So I think I'd be very qualified in working well with Pelham Manor.
I'll add some here. The big elephant in the room is consolidation. People always talk, why don't we consolidate with Pelham Manor? Such a small town, one school district. There's a lot to look at. This study's been done in the past. I have not seen a study that says there are going to be definite long-term savings. There very well may be, and it's prudent for us to take a look at it. And but at the end of the day, you need a willing dance partner. And if Pelham Manor wants to come to the table and discuss whether or not it makes sense to consolidate, I'm willing to have that conversation. But there's a lot that goes into consolidation. What would it look like for both villages? Is this something that's best for the residents? Are there long-term savings? If all three of those answers are yes, then I think we should look into it. But there's a lot of work to be done before we get to that step.
Okay, thank you. Would someone from the other side like to respond?
Yeah, sorry.
Well, if I'm not interrupting, I have felt very strongly about this, and it is right. This is a question of both communities. And so we can feel this all day long. I think our job is to elevate an open and honest discussion. I do think there's an opportunity. And I think it's very simple to say that from the old 2002 analysis, let's go back, let's start from there. Let's understand it. Let's set to the goals that would get us a targeted minimum return that or reduction that we think is justifiable and is safe, and then let's execute to that. I've done this in my work in many businesses, and I think that is exactly what we have to understand. We can actually get a set savings. I bet it's more than 15%, and it's probably going to make our departments safer, because they're each half departments in a certain way. We're small villages. I'd rather know that they have more men going out and working more safely. And so this is a conversation that's legitimate and worth having. It's okay that there are historical opinions that perhaps it's not in the best interest, but it never hurts to go back and revisit, and honestly and openly and fairly discuss it. So I'd like us to.
Thank you.
Could you add?
Can I add?
Would you like
It's 1 minute, 1 minute
Oh.
for, but I do have a question. Andrea, I have a question for you.
Is it related to that?
No, it's not related to that. The next question is from Mercedes Maldonado, and it's for Andrea. If you had to choose an issue in our village to address first, what would it be?
Okay. Well, I'm going to be like some big-time politician, and I'm going to go back to the question that was just asked that I kind of wanted to answer. So I don't know that if it's first in the village, but it's up there, and it's certainly first this evening. I think with something like consolidation or looking at combining services, timing is everything, and I think right now, since there have been safety issues, there have been a couple different accidents, people are concerned about this, they're concerned about areas that are along the border. The timing is right to have this discussion, and I think if there's any chance, and I'm just reading, I'm going to quote myself here, if there's a chance that combining services would result in quicker emergency response times, more efficient use of resources, and cost savings, both villages owe it to their residents to give the idea thoughtful and thorough consideration. And I don't think there's any need to wait on doing that. I think that can happen right now. Why would you put it off?
Okay. Would either of you like to respond, or as newcomers, what would you address first?
If we're elected, we start our term on April 1st, and we're right in the throes of the budget season. I think we've got a very tough budget this year. We've got a 0.12% tax cap, as we've discussed. It's $12,000 of additional monies that can be expended this year. The first issue has to be getting a budget. I am committed to getting a budget passed that's under the tax cap, because that will generate, because of the state tax cap rebate program, residents in this village will actually get rebate checks back from the state when it comes to staying under the cap. So I think it's a priority of ours. Can I say that we can definitely do it? No, but I hope so. I'm committed to it.
Thank you. The next question is from Chris Cohen, 304 7th Avenue, and it's for the two incumbents in particular.
Didn't we have him already?
Oh, we did?
I thought we said
My
everybody
apologies.
gets to
Yep,
ask
no,
a question first.
my apologies. I didn't,
Not that I don't want that.
the last question. Good catch, thank you. Thank you. Okay, this is from Clayton Bashong for Rick Deere in particular. And I think I'll combine it with a couple, there are three questions that are all sort of related that come from you, go to you. It's what savings do you think you can help with in terms of the police department? And then related to that are a couple of questions about where you will stand sort of in conflict of interest. Do you receive a pension? Will you step out of those discussions? How will you sort of marry the being part of the police department for 30 years with being a trustee?
I got this. Okay, very good. As far as what I can do to save money in the police budget, as a detective, I was also responsible for processing the crime scenes. In doing so, we needed to order certain materials. Anything police-related is expensive, okay? I know really what's needed there and what's not needed. I know that what we can get by with and what we can't. To say that, no, we're just not gonna buy any vehicles this year and save money, it's not a wise choice. The repairs to vehicles that have been overworked are just higher than the cost of a new vehicle. So I believe that with the knowledge that I have from working there, that I can do those savings for the village. As far as being impartial towards the police department, the pension that I receive is from the state. It's not from the village. Second, I'm a taxpayer, okay? And I appreciate my taxes being as low as possible, just like everyone else here. Okay, so I discussed this matter with the mayor, and I told him I believe I could be nonpartisan as far as the department goes. But if he saw fit that maybe I should not vote and maybe just advise the board, well, then that's something we could discuss at the time. And if has to be, I'll sit aside.
Okay. Would somebody from the other side like to respond? Or?
I don't feel the need to comment on Detective Deere's distinguished service. He earned it.
Okay. The next question's from Virginia Hartmere and Benedict Place. What do you believe are the most important factors to consider when evaluating new developments in the village? And it's for everyone. So, want to start?
Sure. In considering new developments for the village, I think first and foremost, we have to look at our impact on our schools. The schools are, whether or not, I understand that we're not the school board, we don't control the school budget, but we're one community here. And our school budgets are the largest percentage of our tax bill. And if we're gonna put in if we're gonna say this development's gonna put 120 new kids, whatever the number is, I'm making numbers up here, 120 new kids in one elementary school, that's not gonna work. It's going to be disastrous to our school system, be disastrous for the community, and I wouldn't support something like that. So first, I think, how is it going to affect our schools? Also, how is it going to affect our police and fire? Are there fire issues? Like, I know there's a fire code, but are we not going to have enough firemen to be able to get in if there's an emergency? Police issues with traffic and congestion. So I think first and foremost, we have to look at the detriment to our essential services. If it's smart development, low number of residential units, I would be open to that discussion.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in favor of some development in the village, okay? I believe at some point, we're gonna have some new buildings go up. What I would like to see, as Mike Recca has said, there's gonna have to be a balance. First, it's gonna have to look like the rest of the village, okay? I don't want something looking like Trump Tower. That's fine for New Rochelle or another city, but Pelham has its charm, and I want to keep that charm. As far as the effects on the services, that's another thing that needs to be weighed. Same with the school system. You don't want to add too many children to the school system to make it difficult. And I would also love to have some senior housing possibly in it, because there's people in the village that are getting older that can't afford to live in Pelham, and they want to stay here. I know that it might be me soon or later.
Thank you. Christopher?
No, there is actually a lot of potential development activity that could happen in the next year or two. We know that the lot right next to the Picture House is now going under contract, and there was some talk that might include some elderly housing or senior living, as well as what could happen on Lincoln, I guess Pelham Collision. So the idea is that a lot of this pocket development may be very helpful in terms of steps toward renovating our downtown. These are probably more retail oriented. I would certainly encourage anything that helps create more dining destination space, that step-by-step incremental improvements will help to beautify and increase and enhance the long-term charm of our village. Always, we keep an eye on how many potential new students it could mean. In most of what we've seen talked about, that's probably going to be de minimis. In terms of 101 Wolf's Lane, which we've heard talked about, they've showed us plans, but they're still working. They're staying within the zoning. Our ability to use zoning allows us to continue. If we adjust zoning, we can continue to improve the conformity of this development. But I think right now we're seeing smart discussions because of what we've learned in the last few years.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you. The two previous candidates had mentioned zoning, and that's one of the strongest levers that we get to pull to make sure that there isn't a Trump Tower. We can't have it, we don't want it, and there isn't going to be a 30-story building in the village of Pelham. I can tell you that the code doesn't permit it, and I don't think I don't think it would get through the planning board, the zoning board, and the village board of trustees. There are a lot of people there that consider a lot of things to make sure that any development that happens fits within the character of the community. And the character also takes into account the effect on public services. How high do our fire department ladders reach? Do they have to reach above a certain height? Do they have do the streets wide enough? Is the access enough? Are the units appropriately sized so that you don't encourage large numbers of families? The 101 Wolf's Lane development is mostly 1- and 2-bedroom units to discourage the families, to encourage single people and senior citizens and other folks that have minimal impact on schools and services.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. The word balance has come up quite a bit, and I think that's definitely key. The number of students and new residents. People have mentioned that that might cause strain on resources and infrastructure, and that's a factor to consider. There's also development that will add to tax revenue. So I think you can balance those two out and not really worry about some, huge influx of students or I've just been on the planning board for 4 years. There's very few things left to develop. I mean, we know what they are. We can predict what's coming. I think the best thing to do, one of the things to do, would be to work on the zoning laws. Recommendations were made by Adam and others who are on the planning board, including one that, very important, that stops like businesses from being in a proximity to each other, and that's something that certainly would help the downtown. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. For this one, perhaps someone from each side could answer. It's a question from Mr. Hurl on Maple Avenue. How is the connection to a party important at the village level?
I believe that the connection to a party on the village level is irrelevant. This is not a partisan job. Pelhamites want their garbage picked up, they want their streets plowed, their potholes repaired if we have enough money, and it's pretty expensive, and they want the police and fire to protect them and be there when there's an emergency. When it comes to partisan politics, I don't think they have any role in the job of a village trustee, and that's why we're running on the village party line as well, because we believe that if Rick and I are elected, there will be 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 2 independents on the board. That's balanced. That's what it should be. Should be nonpartisan, and that's how I feel. I yield the rest of my time.
Sure. No, go ahead.
Oh, well, okay, Andrew. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, pardon. No, so we're a very small village. We all come with our political opinions at the national and state level. It's impossible to deny that we all want to vote a certain way, but we all have to work together. When we call the independent line party that we work with, working together for Pelham, it was intentional. This is a place where we can put those things aside. We want to be very proud of who we are as Democrats and also very proud of who we are as Pelham neighbors. So when we work on the board, it's about what's best for each other, and then we go out and we make sure we ask everyone else their opinion on these issues. That is how this should be done. So whether or not you call yourself independents or Republicans, you are Pelham first. And that's what we hope we're all talking about when we're on the boards.
Okay, thank you. This is a question from Mike Tedesco. It's for all of the candidates. What will you do to improve quality of life in Pelham? Michael, sure. Let's start on the other end of the table. Andrea?
Everything possible is my short answer. Basically, if I was on the board, I would just do the best job I could at making each decision that came my way, by researching, by talking to any interested parties, just making sure that everyone's engaged and involved in the process as they choose to be. Hopefully, they would choose to be involved. I'm very big on community engagement and in partnering with local government, partnering with existing community organizations, which is already happening and which I hope continues and even, gets bigger.
Okay, thank you. Adam?
One of the interesting tools that we have is a master plan, which was due to be renewed now. It's a 10-year master plan. It was done last, I think, in 2007, 2008. And one of those things it does is it helps us set goals for the village, including improved use of our public park space, which we've done a lot of in the last year with the last few years. with making the space up on near the Highbrook High Line adjacent that open space open, improving the park along Wolf's Lane, which will benefit from a $700,000 grant from Senator Klein's office. The improvement that the Junior League helped install in that area called the Children's Adventure Playground. I think all of those things make life better in the community, but for me, it starts with having a plan, and I think it's time. I think the time for the updating of the master plan is soon, and I think it's something that we should invest the time and resources in doing.
Okay, thank you. Christopher?
Sure. Certainly, I second the master plan as well. This is the time, and so it's going to be a very interesting discussion, and hopefully we'll get as many people to pay attention to it and get involved. I may be a little bit of a broken record in the things I'd like to see change over time to improve Pelham. Certainly, it is hard for some families to stay because of the tax level. Westchester itself is expensive. We need to think long-term what that means. We all say the same things, we want lower taxes, but at some point we have to think, what do taxes look like 10 years from now? How do we build from today to there? When we're in two-year terms, we often think about what do we have to do to get through budget year to year. We need to engage longer term. That also includes a lot of aging infrastructure that has been basically put off. That will improve Pelham by being better and more responsible about addressing that. The other, as I've also been a broken record about, is downtown. I think we have an opportunity to attract a lot of restaurants. We don't have the foot traffic for retail, but we do for restaurants. We're right next to two big cities. I think the opportunities for more dining choices for us and beautifying the village will come if we all work as a community to attract restaurants.
Thank you. Rick?
I'm sorry. I love the way the village looks. Could you use some improvements? Absolutely. I appreciate the fact that we have flowers on Fifth Avenue that are taken care of by the village. The job that the village has done on the park on Wolf's Lane is very nice. From what I understand, the future plans to develop a little more are very good. I support that. I'd love there to be a little more foot traffic in town. I'd like to see also the street fair get back to where it was, a few years ago. I believe it's gotten a little weaker and hasn't attracted as many people as in the past. That's what I would like to do.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
I agree with a lot of what my colleagues on this stage said. First and foremost, I think we have to work within the constraints of our budgets. So we can do a lot of things to make Pelham a great place to live. They're going to be expensive. So we've got to be reasonable when we take these steps. Now, whether or not it's long-term infrastructure will improve the quality of life, and that's something we should look at. And maybe that's something we do bond. I don't know. We'd have to discuss that. But those are a few things that I'd do. Second, I think I'd like to see more businesses downtown. I think we'd all like to see more businesses downtown. Love shopping local. I love being able to walk and go to a number of different restaurants at any given time. I think it's a great thing that we have. But we have to understand that the village doesn't say we want a restaurant in this storefront. We have levers that allow us to work within the zoning codes, but we don't get to pick and choose. The government doesn't get to pick and choose winners.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from William Atondi. It's for all the candidates. Perhaps one person from each side could answer, as it's getting a little later. What can candidates do to attract more middle school and high school kids to be involved in local government? And in the community in general, I would say it's been a topic of discussion.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, since I have 3 kids and I'm a mom, everyone looks at me, and that's fair. That is absolutely fair. One thing is, which is great, he's come and asked the question, so that's really awesome. I think, if we really, literally, specifically wanted children to come, we would have to have specific events that asked for their input. And that sounds perfectly reasonable to me. If there's an issue that affects kids, why not invite them to comment on it? I think they have a lot of great ideas. I know every day I have Andrea's taxi, and I drive sometimes one, sometimes 6 kids from the high school and middle school to their homes around town, and I hear them, and they have great ideas about the village. So I'd absolutely, I like his idea. I think that inviting kids to participate is a really good idea.
Go ahead.
I'll take this one, Rick. Well, I think it's great that you're here as well. I was in your shoes, 10, 15 years ago. I don't know exactly how old you are, but it starts with just come to a meeting. We don't bite. We're friendly people. We come to a meeting. We'll talk to us after about what goes on. Go to your school board meetings. It's a great way to learn what's going on. Get involved with your student government. Come to the village board meetings. Ask questions. We're here to be a resource for you. And if there's anything that we can do to pique your interest in government, let us know, because I think that I don't know that the village board can really get kids more involved unless that they want to be involved themselves. So I think it starts there. But if you have an idea on something that we can do to get kids involved, let us know.
We have a few seconds left?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you know what? Come to the school, visit the students when they're having their government events. Have some kind of raffle where a student could be mayor, trustee for a day. So they have the opportunity to see exactly what goes on. I think that would be a possible good thing.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for all of the candidates. It's from Michelle Marischuk on River Avenue, and it's about graffiti in our village and how there's been more and more of it, and what the process is and whether the process needs to change, and in terms of cleaning it up and making sure that it doesn't happen as much, and do we have cameras in place at different locations, or should we get them? Let's go with, we'll start from Andrea again to keep it.
Okay, actually, that just leads me to a question. I'm not aware of cameras in the village. Are there cameras in the village? There are.
Yes.
How many cameras are there in the village?
Classified.
Oh, classified, I'm sorry.
There's a number, I don't know the exact number, but
Okay, so you're not going to tell us. Right?
The locations are the issue, not disclosing. That's right.
Awesome. And if I knew, I wouldn't tell you either, but I don't. Cameras, yeah, I don't see why that would be an issue. I guess the main thing would be budget and placement. That they themselves wouldn't be subject to vandalism and thereby get more expensive, but it seems reasonable.
Okay. Adam, would you?
there was the mugger in the Heights. After the Pelham Police Department caught the mugger, one of the things the village board did immediately after that was earmark some money for more camera installations, which were done at the direction of the police chief and the locations that the police department advised. So they have installed some of them. I think there's still more to do. I have noticed some of the graffiti, particularly at the Metro North station. The public department is notified right away, and they notify Metro North. And if Metro North doesn't clean it up quickly, I know that our Public Works, even though they're responsible for it, our Public Works Department acts quickly to respond and cover it to the best of their ability.
I don't want to say that this has gotten worse because some detective went off the job, but, hopefully John Hines can keep up with it. So I'm kidding. But we have very good police. This is frustrating. And I think we also need to be vigilant. When we see something that's changed, we can report to the police so they can pay attention to those patterns. The discussion of the cameras, I feel we should hopefully keep mostly to our personal safety as much as possible. No one loves the idea of a lot of cameras. At the same time, we're very, very interested in making sure that everyone stays safe on our streets. It is a problem. I think we have good police, and let's hope that whoever's heavy on the graffiti is going to get picked up soon by those detectives that are there now.
There has been some graffiti in the village recently. There was a tag placed on over Ralph's haircutting place where an arrest was made, and the graffiti was taken down quickly. Most recently on Montefiore Hospital on Fifth Avenue, there's a nice little piece up there. That's been there for about 2 weeks now, I believe. And but that's a privately owned building. That's something we need to speak to the owner of the building about to get removed. And if not having it removed, maybe we should summons them for it. As far as the cameras, yes, there are cameras around the village. Do I know where they are? Yes, I know where they are. I was part of deciding where the cameras would go and what kind of cameras we were going to use.
Thank you.
In the interest of time, I agree with a lot of what our candidate said. So, I think that using the cameras that we have at our disposal to catch the perpetrators and ensure that it doesn't happen again, be more vigilant. If you see something, say something. But I don't know if there's something specifically that I would do differently to address the graffiti.
Okay, thank you. Last question. We have one last question. This is Chris Cohen's question. That's his second question. So for the two incumbents, what specifically do you hope to accomplish if reelected as a trustee? And limit it to 3 things, please. And is there any vote in retrospect you would have changed?
Would you have a preference for who starts?
Go whichever of you would like to. You want to go first, Christopher?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cohen. For those of you that don't know, Mr. Cohen did come and participate for when the village considered a community choice aggregation program, which is one of the 3 things that I'm looking forward to continuing to work on. That is, the village of Pelham will now be able to buy its power together, all the residents together, which will result in a savings depending on whether you choose power from conventional means or from renewable resources. You will see a reduction in that. So thank you, Mr. Cohen, for helping us with that. What would I vote if I could have it back? What vote would I change? I don't think I would change my vote, but the Extenet matter, which involved the placement of 3 cell phone nodes on top of utility poles. I voted against that measure, and I think that had I had it to do over again, I would have voted. I would have been more aggressive in trying to convert to persuade my other trustees, the other trustees, because I think that was an important matter, and I don't think that the Extenet applicant had really met their burden of proving that they really did have a significant gap using real testing. So I wish that I'd been more vociferous in my objections to that. He wanted 3 things, right?
You said to limit it to 3 things. So.
Limited. Okay, well then I did 1 and 1 then.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
you, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do the second part first. There's not a specific vote that's gone on in the last 2 years that I would really want to either change my opinion on or feel was a terrible issue. The nice thing about the way the board typically works is that a lot goes on in the background before, and we have a great opportunity for debate. In fact, that opportunity within the board, the collegiality has really been very strong in this past year, especially with Mayor Volpe. We're thankful for that. So there are some things I have disagreed with. I wouldn't change my vote on those. But we're making good progress. And the whole point is not unanimity, but to be able to have thoughtful debate. In terms of 3 things, I've mentioned a number already. Without being too repetitive, let me add one I have not yet. We have a wonderful park with Wolf's Lane Park. We repurposed the grant that was originally for a different section. It's now going to begin in the spring. I'm very excited about that, but it has to be done. In the course of the next year, we lose the grant, so we're in the process of starting. I very much would like to see people continue to participate at the board meetings. If there are any final opinions on the design, get the voice out so that everyone's input is there before we get started. The second would be around keeping in with the tax cap. That's something we've talked about. We have a lot of budget decisions to make not just this upcoming month when we get to the budget, but about the next 10 years. I would ask that more of us think about how we put capital planning into our budget thinking so that we can stop doing what we've done with paving, which is only that paving that the state provides, and start finding how to build out over the next 10 years how all of our roads get repaved. A lot of your neighborhood roads are in bad shape. And you're going to ask, when are we coming to pave yours? And our answer continues to be the same. I'd like that to change. And so that really taps into two things: how we manage with budget and how we do capital planning.
Okay. Thank you. Rick or Michael, would you like to respond?
Well, I haven't gotten to vote on anything yet. I haven't gotten to vote on anything yet. And as far as what I'd like to see changed, I'd like to see 2 trustees changed and get myself and Michael in there. I really, not being there and not having the opportunity to do anything yet, I really couldn't comment on it.
Okay. That concludes the questions then. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to give a closing statement, and we'll go in the same order that we went in for the opening statement. So Michael Recca.
Reverse usually.
Oh, my apologies. I have them reversed, but so Adam Kagan will go first then.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you to the News of Pelham and Pelham Plus for putting on this event today. Our community is fortunate to have 5 people who are interested in taking on the role of trustee. As you've heard tonight, the candidates are not terribly far apart on a lot of these issues, and their desire to see the village thrive. As a small village, most candidates and neighbors naturally share the same concerns about taxes and services and growth. But I also believe the village board should have the most experienced and capable people on it, regardless of where they were born or how long they've lived here. By now, Andrea, Chris, and I have probably already knocked on your door or emailed you or shook your hand at some point during this campaign. As incumbents, one additional benefit of re-election campaigning is that we get on-the-ground intelligence about what matters to our constituents. I've been glad to hear that most of the residents think that the current board is moving in the right direction. I ask for your vote now so that we can continue to build on the progress that we've made on some historical issues like water and flooding, to slow the growth of village taxes while making long-term plans, and to maintain the quality of services. While this campaign has not had the kind of fireworks that we've seen in the past, please do not let voter turnout suffer. If you don't exercise your right to vote for the best qualified candidates, local elections become popularity contests. Mike and Rick are neighbors and should be applauded for throwing their hats into the ring. But please don't just vote for a candidate because your kids went to school together. Please listen carefully to what each of us have had to say. And if you have any questions that you didn't get to ask tonight, please email us. My email address is adam@kaganfamily.com. Having served with quite a few different board members now, I know that I cast my vote for candidates who aren't afraid to ask the tough questions and are patient enough to work out the best answers. I encourage you to do the same. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Andrea Renke will go next.
Thank you. Thank you, Maggie and Jennifer, for moderating and hosting us. It's been more fun than I expected, actually. So I'm here running along with Adam and Chris. As incumbents, I feel like they've accomplished a lot, and I don't think their time is up. I think they have more that they're doing and that they need to finish, and I think they're integral to the board, and I want to join them. I think the only way they could be better candidates actually is if they were women, but there's nothing they can do about that, so that's where I come in. I'm just kidding, half kidding. I feel like I have the skills and experience to fill the vacancy left by Joe Marty. I'm not the same type of person or candidate as he is, but I hope that I would be as successful in my own way. I'm very much about listening and learning, and I feel like I just generally want to help people. in any way that I can, whether small ways, big ways, whatever. In terms of professional experience, I don't broadcast it too much, I don't think, but I am actually a licensed attorney, so I do have skills in issue spotting and reading legislation and analytical thinking, logic, you name it. And I think that adds value, and I'd really like a chance to help review and revise the codes. I think I could really add value there. And I just really want to help the community and just keep it a great place for my kids, your kids, all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Deere will go next.
I would like to thank the sponsors of this event tonight and the residents of the village who came out to listen and be part of tonight's debate. Responding to the questions Michael and I were asked, I hope we're able to convey our sincere commitment to this village. This is not just the place that we live. It is the village that we grew up in and that I raised my family. It is also a village that I worked as a patrolman and detective for 30 years, protecting the people of our community. I would like to continue serving this great community, but in a much broader sense. As a candidate for the Board of Trustees, I realize we must be committed to keeping within the tax cap while keeping services to the residents at its highest level possible. We are also committed to keeping the charm that this village has while moving forward with possible future construction. We are committed to making sure every step of the way we weigh the advantages and disadvantages of projects and to make a careful determination of what can be constructed with the least impact to the village while gaining income. We look forward to working with other towns and villages in an attempt to lower our costs on items such as paving our streets, salt purchases, and other matters. We are ready to work with Pelham Manor and the town on projects, and I believe personally we will have a strong impact on specifically working to help keep the students and pedestrians safe around the area of the middle and high school. For years, when walking down the street as a policeman, or with my wife, or going back a number of years now with my kids in strollers, people would frequently approach me on different topics or concerns. I welcome this to continue, and I hope just because I'm no longer wearing a blue uniform, residents will convey their concerns to me so we can work on keeping this village of Pelham one of the nicest places to live. Now more than ever, if I am elected as trustee, I can try to address your concerns. I'm a taxpayer like you, no longer an employee as I once was, so my approach will be different. And I would just like to get your vote on March 15th.
Thank you very much. Christopher Ream.
This is a great level of dialogue that we're having. We need to have this more often than every 2 years at candidates debates, and it needs to be much more interactive with everyone else. There are a lot of issues. Some of them are very complex and very mundane, but others really touch us very closely. Development, downtown, paving, our taxes. My hope is what you've heard in this conversation tonight helps you to give you good reason to stay with the experience that's currently on the board. In Adam's case, it's 4 years. In my case, it's 2. And with Andrea, it's 4 years in the planning board and in great deep involvement with PTA as well. That experience is very much what comes into play to deal with a lot of the things that most of us miss in the details, but also engages the rest of us to have the conversation. Colleen and I love being here as much as everyone, and we can't wait to watch Shepherd grow up here. This is our life as well, and we want to be involved. It's such a great community to be involved. You know, I work in a very interesting professional environment where I see a lot of different complex strategies and issues go on, and I feel that my opportunity to bring budget experience, strategy experience, and even what I do as an adjunct professor at Columbia, to think about how policy actually comes to work on a day-to-day basis, is something that I want to continue to be able to share as we talk about issues on the board. And everyone knows I push very hard that we push that dialogue as much as possible. Sometimes I use too many words, and one of these days I'll figure out how to do it shorter. But we have wonderful opportunity here, and the most I can hope for in my service going forward is just to continue to be a friendly, informed, and independent perspective for every issue we deal with on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michael Recco will finish it up.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming out as well. I agree with a lot of what my opponents just said. I think experience matters. And That's why I'm asking you to vote for me. Now, when I was on the Board of Ed, we passed 2 consecutive budgets that were the lowest tax increases they've had in the last 25 years. That experience translates to the village board. I've been working with joint task force on parking in this village from 2005 and before 2 of the candidates here have even lived here. So when it comes to experience, Rick and I, we've been here a while, we've lived here, we know this town, and we've been involved in this community for a number of years. But I agree, contested elections give our community choices on how the government's run, and our community is better for that. When you go into the voting booth on March 15th, you'll see that the choice says on the ballot, it's between Republicans and Democrats. And I can tell you that's not the case. Rick and I are running on the village party ticket as well as the Republican ticket. But if elected, we join village party trustees, Mayor Volpe, trustees Cassidy, Muti, Ferrara, which would make the Board of Trustees comprised of 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 2 independents. I said that earlier tonight, and it really is important. This job is not a partisan job. Pelhamites want the garbage picked up, the potholes repaired, and they want to know that the police and fire departments are going to be there when we're most vulnerable. I've served this community a number of ways, as I've outlined earlier tonight, but most importantly, I want you to know that my purpose for running is out of love of this community. When I was running and serving on the Board of Ed, some said I was too young and not experienced enough. I couldn't disagree with that more, and I think you would agree with me as well. I bring a unique perspective which will allow me to address issues that we're currently faced with, but not compromising our long-term future. I've always been an independent voice and have been ready and willing to vote against the status quo if it was in the best interest in our community. If elected, I will work tirelessly with the entire board and community stakeholders to find solutions to the issues we've discussed here tonight, such as meeting budgets and addressing development, and I'm out of time.
Thank you very much. That's the conclusion. I'd like to thank all the candidates for their participation, for your thoughtful answers, and also for your willingness to serve and make this community what it is. Thank you, too, to the audience. It's nothing without your questions. I'd just like to remind everybody viewing online that the election is Tuesday, March 15th, and all voting will be at Duranco Townhouse on 5th Avenue. The polls will open early at 6 a.m. and stay open late till 9 p.m. So get out and vote. And this meeting was filmed for broadcast on the Village website, www.pelhamgov.com, as well as the Village of Pelham's Cablevision Channel 75 and Verizon Fios Channel 43. It will also be shown on the school channels, Cablevision 77 and Fios Channel 42, and will be available on the Pelham Plus website at pelhamplus.com. Thank you.